good morning and thank you for joining us today for this webinar. How can small business owners unlock the potential of AI? My name is Andrew McCallum. I'm the Manager of Membership and Community Engagement at auDA, and it really is great to welcome you to the webinar, and which we will explore the very intriguing world of AI and how it relates to all of us, particularly small business owners. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to elders past and present, to those who passed before us, and to the members of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community who are attending here today. I want to specifically acknowledge and pay my respects to the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm coming to you. Before I introduce today's guest, I do want to highlight that this webinar is scheduled for 45 minutes. We will go a little past 1:45 because of the late start. Apologies again, but it will be recorded. Without further delay, I'm really delighted to introduce our special guest, Wilhelmina Duyvestyn. Wilhelmina is the SME Industry Program Manager at the National AI Centre and brings to that role over 15 years of experience in IT product management and marketing across Australia and overseas. As the SME Industry Program Manager at the National Artificial Intelligence Centre, Wilhelmina aims to activate and accelerate a responsible and inclusive AI journey for SMEs in Australia. And most importantly, Wilhelmina has been kind enough to share her extensive expertise from the world of AI with us today. And this is, of course, such a really fascinating topic with such wide-reaching implications for all of us. So it's a great opportunity for us. We will have time for questions at the end of the presentation. So if you do have questions, please add them to the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to put them to Wilhelmina at the end of the presentation. On that note, Wilhelmina, I'll hand over to you for the heavy lifting.
Thanks, Andrew, and welcome everybody. I hope to share a little bit about AI and how AI is relevant for your business, and then some example use cases and some resources that you can leverage. So I'm also joining you from the Gadigal land, so I want to pay my respects to the traditional owners, past and present. Thank you. So what's AI? So when Andrew asked me to present today, he wanted to start at the basics, and you know, AI is really just software that can detect patterns from data sets to make predictions. AI works from learning from data to recognize patterns and make predictions. And a recent project that we had with CSIRO and Google, we created a wonderful video, which we can't seem to get to work today, and that's why we're a little bit late. And it's called AI is not magic, it's maths and algorithms. So I've actually, in the next slide, I've actually put a link, a QR code, so you can go and watch this video. It's a very good introduction to what AI is about and how it works. And more importantly, our responsibility as users to make sure it's used responsibly. So moving on to the next slide. So there's sort of two main types of AI. I mean, we could list, 10, 20 types of AI, but the main two types of AI is narrow AI, which is designed to carry out specific tasks that are repetitive or pattern-based. And then, of course, there's generative AI, which many of you, all of you have heard there's been so much hype in the last 2 years. But this type of AI is being trained on data, whether it's text or images, and then it recognizes patterns or words and creates results. So they're quite different use cases from narrow AI and generative AI. So let's just take a little step forward into what's the relevance for you as small business owners. So there are many opportunities, and I know you don't get up in the morning going, how can I use AI? You probably get up in the morning and say, how can I save time? How can I be more productive? How can I grow revenue? So all these areas are really important to you as a small business. But importantly, AI can really help you, or AI solutions can help you improve customer experience, increase operational efficiency, reduce costs, and save time so you can spend more time with your family or your business or both. So the top 4 areas, and I've It says 3 here, but anyway, the top 4 areas, and there are many, many areas that AI can help, but the top 4 areas for small businesses: using AI in finance functions to do reporting, using AI in customer service to improve customer experience and customer interaction, and then using AI in marketing, so to help you write your social posts, help you write your newsletters, help you understand your customers better. And the 4th area is using AI solutions to help with operational efficiency. For example, if you have a bakery or a manufacturing plant, how can we use AI to give you real-time predictions, for example? So there are many more examples, and I'll go through a few more in the next couple of slides. Next slide. So in finance, and I've seen some amazing examples of this, and some of our AI ecosystem provide automated ways to do things that typically take a lot of time in your week or your day. So financial reporting, whether it's ESG or your tax reporting or just your business financial reporting. It's also useful in fraud detection, risk management, and investment analysis, all the while improving your accuracy and the efficiency of your processes. So this area is super exciting for a small business owner. Next slide, thanks. So for customer service, I talked about this before, but we can use AI to optimize and automate customer support through chatbots, and I'm sure many of you have had examples of that. But Gen AI has really improved the quality and the access to information of chatbots. We can also use it to resolve customer queries with higher accuracy, reduce response times, and provide more personal customer experiences. Next slide. So in marketing, and as someone that's spent a lot of time in marketing in my career, AI can help you analyze large data sets, your customer data, to identify patterns and to improve your targeting and retention. So it's super exciting that you're able to analyze your target audience. Who are your high value customers? How can you predict customer churn, for example? When do you know whether a customer's not going to buy more from you? And more importantly, in your everyday life, tailor messages to a specific audience. And long term, it's about improving the average lifetime value of your customer. Next slide, please. So we have, at the National AI Centre, we have this AI ecosystem portal, and there are hundreds of Australian software and service providers that are providing different solutions in this wonderful AI ecosystem. And I've just given some examples here to give you an idea around some of the scenarios I just talked about. So Empathetic AI, for example, have built this Lunar tax assistant to help tax accountants actually automate and streamline their tax reporting processes. And this links into all the Australian tax laws, for example. So it really saves lots of time, up to 30% of time. Tooth Fairy AI do many things, but 2 things that I really am excited about are how they help transform your business operations and how they help transform your customer interactions, some of those marketing scenarios I just talked about. Tillit is all about using AI for smart manufacturing to streamline the end-to-end manufacturing process, and I'll talk a little bit about a use case in a minute. PI Exchange, they're really doing this analytics to help you predict customer churn and do proactive things to retain customers. Patient Notes, which is really targeted at clinicians and medical practitioners, is all about helping you write clinical notes, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And then Zania do a lot of amazing Gen AI for business reporting. I talked about ESG, financial reporting, tax reporting, all those things that take a lot of your time and resources. So in the next few slides, I'll give some specific use cases. So Patient Notes, which is this great application that's used by thousands of clinical sessions around Australia for anyone from being a podiatrist, a doctor, an osteopath. There are hundreds of templates for medical practitioners. And what this does is it uses audio on the approval of your patient, of course, and then it allows you to create clinical notes from the session that you have with that patient. And then you can also automatically generate clinical referrals or actual patient recommendations for how they can recover, for example, from a knee injury, so forth. So this is a really cool application that's used all around Australia, and it really saves everyone time. So next story. So this is, I mentioned Tillet earlier. So Lifestyle Bakery sort of started their manufacturing or smart manufacturing journey by using Tillet to really, they wanted to find some way of improving the operational efficiency of their equipment and reduce downtime. And so they've used this Tillet AI solution that really helps all the operators on the shop floor with a digital platform that gives them real-time visibility of what's going through the entire process. And in short, they've actually used Tillet to remove paper from their operations. They're also synchronizing their workflow amongst the different people in the factory. And then the real value is how management and operations teams can optimize how they build and deploy their products. So this is a really cool solution. The third one I just want to talk about is something you're probably all familiar with, but using AI for personalized marketing and customer service. And this is where, you know, customer retention is really important and personalization. So Booktopia use AI algorithms to analyze their customers' data and recommend books based on their preferences and purchasing history. And I'm sure you've experienced that in things like Spotify and other things. But in the end, it increases the customer lifetime value. And they also use chatbots for 24-hour customer service. And no surprise, but their resolution time is 30% faster. So a really valuable use case for a small business. Next slide. The fourth one is also another manufacturing one, but they're really using AI for predictive maintenance. And this is really something that saves, you know, reduces maintenance costs by between 25 and 30%, but it provides predictive analytics to show when potentially somewhere in the manufacturing process can break down. And it increases machine life, and obviously having your production process smooth and productive is super important. So another customer story. But let's just take a step back and go to generative AI. We've seen this in the market. Everybody's heard about it, and I'm sure you've all tried various versions of that. But the main value for Gen AI is content generation. You know, I use this to create social media posts, to write emails, to even write scripts for videos, for example. Developers are using Gen AI to help them, you know, write custom solutions. The writing assistant is basically what I talked about, but anyone can use that, a salesperson or any staff to write and draft text. And the text-speech solution is what I talked about with patient notes, so that's fantastic. And then there's also great solutions around product design and development, personalized user experience, gaming, and amazing healthcare solutions. So there's some of the top use cases. Next slide. Recently, or late last year actually, Tech Council of Australia and Microsoft did a report on the generative AI opportunity for Australia. They're saying that's about 115 billion in revenue opportunity. But they also looked into the impact of Gen AI on roles. And I wanted to just give a few examples. This is a QR code to the full report if you'd like to read it. But for example, Gen AI conversational assistants help customer support agents resolve 14% more queries in an hour. Developers can generate code in 57% less time. And managers using Gen AI can reduce time for writing tasks by 37%. So all very cool. But we do know that lots of other roles are using Gen AI. For example, creatives, about 14% of creatives are also using Gen AI. So as a small business, how can you start the AI adoption process? And, you know, really what we've heard, obviously many of you don't get up saying, hey, I want to use AI today, but I think one of the most important things is understanding what AI solutions can do for your business. Are there specific things, pain points or opportunities where you'd like some accelerated solutions to help you go to market or optimize your business processes? I also recommend you use AI in your daily tasks. So many of you have probably used ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini or one of the many assistants. The important thing here is when you're using this in your daily tasks, and make sure that what you share in those systems is something you're happy about going into a large language model. Otherwise, use something like Copilot, which is integrated into Office 365, and any of that data stays in your Office 365 instance, and any queries out to the web will be not personally attached to you as an individual. So that's a really great way to start. But really the next step is to identify problems or opportunities you really want to solve, and then determine if AI can help you address those. But the use cases you want to use, you really need to identify if there's concrete value, that you've got tangible benefits that you can identify. And once you start thinking about that, you can also leverage the government AI adopt centres that can help you pilot or deploy AI solutions. You could also bring in an AI partner and set up a pilot yourself. But the important thing is to start small with something manageable that you can easily recognize the business value. So that's the adoption process. But I guess it's remiss of me if I don't talk about the challenges you have as a small business. So, you know, as I said before, you often have more urgent business priorities. You've got high interest rates, high electricity rates, complexity of hiring. So all these things take up a lot of time. So often resulting in, you know, high compliance costs and red tape. So time and resource constraints are, you know, obviously important thing to consider. But I really recommend you understand what sort of use cases can help your business not just grow, but be more productive. And when I say grow, you may not want to hire more people, but you obviously want to grow revenue. So that's an important consideration. And then many small businesses don't know how to get started, and I'm going to give some guidance on that. And there are obviously data privacy and ethical concerns to think about. And we all have a role to make sure that we're producing AI solutions that are going to be positive for the community. So next slide. So I talked briefly about data privacy, but it's important to make sure that you leverage secure cloud services or implement the AI inside your organization in a secure way. And then understand where the data is coming from to make sure that you're not feeding information that will create bias, and also diversity and inclusion. If we'd shown that video earlier on, there's a great example of AI for soundtracks and, using your personal preferences on top of the whole broader community. So it's important to look at where your data is coming from and test for diversity and inclusion. While on the AI journey, it's important to think about reskilling employees and potentially create new roles that complement the AI solutions. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So the responsibility and risk, so we hear a lot in the marketplace, and it's sort of important that we understand that AI should be designed, developed and deployed and used in a manner that's safe, that has and minimizes the risk of negative consequences to people, groups and wider society. So our team are building responsible AI standards and guardrails and important things to help Australia minimize these risks. So in conclusion, I really encourage you to understand a little bit more about AI, and I'll give you some links to some really short courses and videos that, take a couple of hours or a couple of minutes. Understand the use cases that can benefit your business. Try using Gen AI tools for everyday tasks and get used to the value of the time savings, actually, which is amazing, and accuracy. Then identify a simple use case. Create an AI strategy for your business. It doesn't have to be complicated, but start here and move to different scenarios with high impact and high business value. And leverage responsible AI adoption frameworks. And last but not least, stay connected through our National AI Centre resources, communications and events. And now I'll give you some things that I think you'll really appreciate. So I have this website, which many of these things are located on, where we have business resources, videos, templates and frameworks. One of the most important things on that site, and I've given you a direct link, is a free Introduction to AI course that we built with the Institute of Applied Technology. And this is a free course. It takes about 2.5 hours. It gives you a high-level introduction to AI, what are the use cases, and some communication with experts. So it's a lot of my friends with small businesses and colleagues say this is a really great place to start. Next slide. And then last but not least, we built a whole lot of short videos with the Human Technology Institute. They're a couple of minutes, some of them are 10 minutes, but they actually go through the entire AI journey for you. So it's really a playlist of foundational understanding of this technology, and a really easy way to familiarize yourself with the fundamentals of AI for business. So on that, I want to say thank you, and please, follow us on LinkedIn or join the AI network, and connect with the Australian AI industry and join the conversation. Thank you, Andrew.
All right, Wilhelmina, thank you very much for getting that through. And I note you snuck in some homework there as well for the participants. Just a reminder, the video Wilhelmina referred to, the link to that is in the chat, and we will reshare the link for the AI course in there as well, which is come for a 45-minute webinar and leave with a 3-hour training course, which sounds fantastic. But we do have a few questions for you, and please, if you do have any questions for Wilhelmina while you're here, please do pop them in the Q&A and we'll start working through those. But one question off the bat, which came in early, which was great. Tricky one for you. Using generative AI, who owns the output that I might use in social media posts, for example?
So the output of Gen AI you own the output. If it's something you created using your own prompts in Gen AI, that's the general consensus. But I did say it's important that when you use Gen AI, that you, if anything that you don't want to go into a large language model, that you use a type of Gen AI that actually keeps your data inside your ecosystem. For example, Copilot keeps it in your Office 365 instance, and nothing that you search for is identified as you. So that's important. But going back to the other question, yes, you own the output.
You mentioned some excellent examples around some very positive experiences of small businesses using AI. Without wishing to name names, can you sort of go into any sort of less than successful examples? And I guess more importantly, what are some of the lessons learned for businesses that have tried to go down that path? Can you sort of elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, look, I think I talked about in the beginning that it's really important to identify your data sources. So, you know, there's amazing productivity gains from doing reporting in your, you know, from your financial data. But it's when you're doing stuff with your own private data, it's important to keep it within your ecosystem, not use a free open tool that potentially your data can go out and be consumed by that open large language model. So I think the cases where I've seen negative impact is when people don't understand, when they're using something that's not in their own ecosystem, that anything they put in there will go into the public domain. So you may not want your financial results or your customer data into those things. So when you start using your personal company data, make sure you use it in a more what I call a sandboxed environment. That's probably the lessons learned. The second one is, I talked about this earlier, about understanding where your data has come from. And there's many great examples of bias in AI. So bias in hiring or using, so the data that you put in to help personalize your customer experience, you want to make sure that that data is not biased towards a particular, I don't know, race, color, religion, whatever, like making assumptions. So there's classical stories about personalization, you know, offending people's behavior, or personalization being quite negative. So it's really important to understand where your data's from.
Okay, thank you. That's a good one for a tough question. Here's an equally difficult, challenging question for you, if you want. If multiple people ask the exact same question of the same tool, say Google's Gemini, ChatGPT, will the AI produce the same response, or are all responses unique?
That's a really interesting question, because when you're using these Gen AI assistants, quite often it starts to learn from your behavior in the assistant. So I have, like, for example, custom prompts that I have in my Gen AI assistants. And it knows that I'd like things written in a certain way with facts. And so I've given those prompts. So when I ask a question, because it knows my background and how I like to see things, it will most likely answer differently. In fact, it will answer differently to if you do it, Andrew. So there's a level of personalization that comes on, but also sometimes these models hallucinate and find different data sources that may not even be true. So I think one of the most important things from that is that we need to check what comes out of these systems, and we need to check them for validity. And I didn't talk about that much in this session, but you know, when you know your business, if you ask a Gen AI assistant to give you some information, then you need to double check the facts. And a lot of the new systems give you links to where they got that information from, but you're the human that needs to oversee the results of those chats, right? You need to go, oh, is that the right thing? Maybe try a couple of other sources, or based on your experience, that's wrong, let's try that again. So we have a role to oversee the results of these types of chats.
Good one. Very specific question is, I've just from here, is Copilot available for businesses with less than 500 licenses yet?
Oh,
Putting you on the spot
here. I don't work for Microsoft, I'm sorry, but I do know that they have offerings for small, medium enterprises. I don't know the details of their licensing arrangements. But I think if you have an Office 365 subscription, then you can add a Copilot license with that, but I don't know anything else. I've been on the Copilot trial because at CSIRO, we're part of the whole of government thing, but I can definitely get more information from my SME contacts at Microsoft.
Yeah, thank you. Couple of questions a little bit related. Is there a risk with generative AI that the information is, stale, it's incorrect, it's out of date? And is there an AI fact checker tool out there, or is this a question asked? Does that add to the problem if there was?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. When, for example, when ChatGPT 3.0 came out, they were using data back to 2021. So, you might write a query, but they'll only give the answers back to 2021, and it's now 2024. Some of the newer versions of the models use the current data in their large language models, and it really depends on, as I said before, what data is fed in, and that's the fact checking that we all have to do. Is there an AI tool to check fact checking? I don't know. I could ask some of our ecosystem partners, but I think that's our intelligence that we have to use.
Yeah. And so,
like, for example, like one of the journalists, I listened to this podcast called Hard Fork, and the New York Times journalist, he uses it to help him, put together articles, but he fact checks everything. And there are applications that can give you much more detail. I can't give you the name of them, but it's still our role to act as the human oversight.
Yeah. And can you just expand on that in terms of ChatGPT? Obviously, yes, it was a few years old when it was released, but how regularly are the likes of ChatGPT refreshing their content sources to maintain currency?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think most of the larger models from Google and, Microsoft and ChatGPT, they are constantly refreshed, but you usually pay a license fee for the larger language models.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What are sort of, and another question, what are some of the red flags a small business should look out for when choosing an AI vendor or partner?
That's a really good question. So I think it's important to have a look at their the vendors, where they get their data from, what their sources are, but also have they written their applications in a responsible way. So actually, one of the HTI Human Technology Institute videos goes into that in more detail. How do you buy or create AI solutions, and what's the checklist you should go through to you can't ensure these things, but you can minimize your risks by dealing with a responsible AI provider. Does that answer the question?
It leads me very well to the next question. I know the CSIRO doesn't recommend any specific AI consultants or firms, but where is there any, what should people look out for if, let's say, somebody in Sydney was looking for a AI provider or vendor in Sydney that could, looking for a quick win or some AI implementation? Where would they find such a person?
It's a really great question, because we have this AI ecosystem portal, which has about 350 AI service providers and software providers. We don't validate every one of them because it would be an exhausting process. However, there's some level of validation to get on the portal, as in, they're a real company. They have, a URL and an ABN and all those sorts of things. But no, I don't think there's a magic way of validating vendors, and it'd be very hard for one central organisation to do that. Unless the person that asks a question has ideas, I'd love to hear them.
What is where would someone find that vendor list you mentioned?
It's, if you go to the Australian industry page, so CSIRO NAIC, the link that's up there right now.
Mm-hmm.
There is there's a link to the ecosystem portal, and in fact, on one of the slides, I had the exact link as well. So it's on the CSIRO National AI Centre page, NAIC. You've got the link just there, the third one.
Okay, super. All right. And I will go, my last question from me, a last question, I promise. You mentioned using generative AI in your daily tasks as a way of indoctrinating yourself, my words, not yours, into AI. Wilhelmina, what is your go-to AI-powered solution that you're using for your daily tasks?
Well, I actually use a couple, but I really love using Copilot in PowerPoint. And just as an example, many of these slides were created by Copilot in PowerPoint. I had an article that I wrote about small business, or that one of the comms people wrote, AI in small business. So I use the Copilot in PowerPoint every day. I also use Copilot in Teams. Then I have the new ChatGPT 4.0, and I use that for sometimes I want to write a marketing plan for a certain go-to-market activity. I'll put in what I call the store man. I have my custom prompts in there. So one of the things I find really hard is, say you've got a new project in mind, you understand a little bit about what you want to do, you put that in with a couple of custom prompts, and it'll generate a framework for you that you can take and edit and make your own. So I use that all the time. I use it for my social media posts as well. So so two main Gen AI tools, I'd say.
Fantastic. Thank you. And again, we might just have to wrap it up there. I do apologise again for being a little bit late. But we will wrap it up there. A huge thank you to you, Wilhelmina, for making the time today and for preparing that. And that's been a really interesting discussion. Just in closing, as always, if you're not currently part of the .au membership program, I do encourage you to join. .au membership is complimentary and connects you to a range of information and events, such as this one. If again, you can join via the auDA website at auda.org.au.